Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here. The Nanovic Institute for European Studies welcomes you to this special event. My name is Clemens Sedmak and I serve as director of the Nanovic Institute for European Studies. Welcome all. A special word of welcome to our special guests, Mikolas Dzurinda, former Prime Minister of Slovakia, and the famous elite athletes Václav Nedomanský, Peter Stastny, Anton Stastny, and Dmitri Khristich. Please allow me to also especially welcome the wonderful Jane Heiden, chair of the Nanovic Institute's advisory board, and her husband, Tom Heiden, equally wonderful. They are our hosts tonight, and we are so grateful. Welcome, colleagues, students, guests, friends, friends-to-be, and future former friends. The choreography is simple but elaborate and follows a domino effect. I will introduce Jane Heiden. Jane will then step to the lectern and introduce our distinguished moderator, facilitator, and genius behind the scenes. He will introduce the panelists, and if there's any time left, the journey begins. The Nanovic Institute of European Studies would be lost without its advisory board, and the board would be lost without its chair. The wonderful Jane Heiden served as CEO of Compulate, whatever, how you pronounce that, a company that she and her husband founded with her knowledge of computers combined with her husband's expertise in complex litigation. Known as one of the best litigation support companies in industry, Compulate was acquired by Pitney Bowes in 2006. After the acquisition, Jane served as executive VP in another company. A highlight of her life, I'm sure, is chairing the board of the Nanovic Institute for European Studies, which she does with eminent elegance, ethereal esprit, effortless efficiency, exceptional empathy, and endless enthusiasm. Jane and her husband, Notre Dame alum Thomas Heiden, have 5 adult children, including 2 sons who were roommates in Keenan Hall here in Notre Dame. She's an avid sports person and converses easily with elite athletes. She speaks tennis, hockey, and golf, to name a few languages. Jane has the gift of making people feel welcome. Please, dear Jane, bring this wonderful gift to work once again. Jane Heiden.
Clemens, that is a hard act to follow. Thank you. Welcome and thank you all for attending this special event. This event was cleverly designed to intersect academics with athletics at the University of Notre Dame. I proudly introduce the chief architect and moderator of the program, my husband, Tom Heiden.
See, if we keep doing this long enough, then the session will pass and we'll still be on the introductions. I'm going to start in a different place. In March of 1946, and Winston Churchill, while the West was celebrating victory in World War II, said that from Stettin in the Baltic to Trieste in the Adriatic, an iron curtain has descended across Europe. And trapped behind that iron curtain were tens of millions of people, all of whom suffered trapped, except for the political elites, all of whom were trapped for 45 years. But during that 45-year entrapment, some of those people resisted, and they pushed back in their fight for freedom. Today, I believe that we face the most existential threat to our post-World War II values-based, rules-based system. And it is Putin's invasion of Ukraine and the reassertion of Russian imperialism. But rather than take my words for any of this, we thought that the most eloquent words are the words of those people who were there, who saw it and lived it and knew what it was like to live under the heel of the boot of the Russian bear. And they have traveled thousands of miles to tell you what it was like, because they think that there is a message in that. The message being why it is important to stand up to and stand up for freedom again, threatened again today. This part I'm going to use some notes because there are some numbers on here. Václav Nedomanský, he was the first of the elite hockey players to escape from behind the Soviet bloc to play in the National Hockey League. He was a native of Slovakia, star of the Czechoslovak national team. He defected in 1974. He is a member of the International Hockey Hall of Fame. He is a member of the National Hockey League Hall of Fame. He scored more than 600 goals for the Czech national team and for professional major league teams in North America. Welcome, Ned. Dmitri Khristich, he played 11 or 12 years in the National Hockey League. He was a National Hockey League All-Star. He grew up in Ukraine. He grew up in Kyiv. Ukraine, back when he was growing up, was part of the Soviet Union. He even had to play for the Soviet national team and won a world championship for them. He scored 600 points in the National Hockey League. And to show you the courage of some of these men, now with bombs falling on his country, and Dmitri was there in February of 2022 when Putin's bombs started falling on Ukraine. He has been called to go back to Ukraine to be the head coach of their national hockey team in the face of all this. Anton Stastny, he was on the Czechoslovakian national team. And in 1980, he and his brother decided that it was time to leave, to try to be free men and have freedom for themselves and their families. And he and Peter, and they can explain the circumstances, escaped and ended up in Quebec and played many, many years in the National Hockey League. And Anton was an NHL All-Star. And Anton scored 636 points in the National Hockey League. And his brother, an NHL All-Star, scored, I'll do it, 1,239 points. I was a hockey player. He scored 1,239 more points than I scored in the National Hockey League. And Peter is a member of the National Hockey League Hall of Fame. But Peter, like the others, was not done then. After the wall fell, Peter went back to Slovakia. And he ran for parliament. And he was twice elected to the European Parliament to serve his country in Brussels, because he understood the importance of freedom and of the umbrella of the EU and NATO. But all those numbers, that's not what makes any of the four of them special to me. What makes them special to me is their courage and their determination in their quest for freedom, for themselves, and for their families, and for their countrymen. And again, in 1968, when Brezhnev's tanks rolled into Czechoslovakia to Prague and Bratislava, Mr. Nedomanský was in Czechoslovakia. Peter and Anton were in Czechoslovakia. And as I said, when Putin started dropping his bombs on Ukraine, Dmitri was in Ukraine. So, question and answer format. We'll give some time at the end for you to ask questions. Audience participation is encouraged. But I'm going to start out with a most general question. And I'm going to ask it of Anton. Anton, you flew all the way here from Switzerland?
Yes, I did.
Tell us, why did you fly here to talk to us about this topic?
Well, it's first of all a great honor to be here and explain a part of my life which was great. When I landed in Quebec, I was about 20 years old. So I've been living 44 years of great life in a free society. When we landed, plenty of people asked, why did you come? Many articles and stories were written, from Sports Illustrated to Time Magazine, Canadian Globe and Mail, even Paris Match in France, if some of you know. But one article that stands up particularly was one written by a columnist in Quebec Daily. And that article had a headline, "They couldn't complain, / because they couldn't complain." And that guy was a smart columnist, and he was hitting a nail right on. Well, this is a story that I like to explain. First part, they couldn't complain. He was dead on. We had a shelter, was given by a state company to almost everyone. We didn't know it. We were not owners, but we had the shelter. Nice apartment. I had a car, Italian one, not made in Czechoslovakia. I had plenty of money. For my age, plenty of money. Even foreign currency, US dollars. We could travel abroad once a year, but we could. Most of the people could not. Then we had so many privileges, social status was great. I attended university. I was at the Business School of Economics at the Comenius University. I had a girlfriend. I had my future. I wanted to get married, set up a family, have some children. So the guy in the article was perfectly right. I could not complain. Why should I? Why should we? Peter was about the same situation. But all this was because we were better than the rest. We had a better talent, we had the better results, We were better ethics, work ethics. So quickly we made up our way to the national team. And the national team was the pinnacle. If you're in the national team, you have most of those privileges and even money and car and so on. But then came that part, was mentioned, they couldn't complain because they couldn't complain. It was a time when our home team, we players, there was a team that even Big Ned played for, Slovan Bratislava. We had issues because there were some dealings that were not really kosher. And team was getting lower and lower. We were struggling. So we came and we complained. We should not complain. So, make a long story short, there was a one day chief of Communist Party and one of the top managers from our main sponsor came over to the dressing room and delivered a spine-shivering speech. That speech was targeted at us, members of the national team, and the leaders of the club. And he was saying very nicely and clearly, if you guys don't obey, if you complain, there is no more national team, no more hockey, no more university, and one day you will find yourself pushing wheelbarrow in our factory. And we knew that was possible. They had so much power. That was possible. So, why we were so decisive? Because we learned from the past. The past stories that we heard from likes Peter's coach, Mr. Bubnik. In 50s, he went from national team straight to the Iranian mine in a politically prepared and made-up trial. He got only 14 years prison. So for us, there was no time to waste. In 2 weeks' time, we were sitting on a plane bound for Quebec, Canada. We left everything behind. Everything. There was price to pay. When I left, I had only my sport bag. Pair of skates inside, underwear, toothpaste, toothbrush, that's it. All those advantages, all those money, all those cars, apartments, everything was gone. We knew that that was a price to pay for freedom. And we were ready to pay that price for freedom. Sometimes later, about 4 years, came a time to apply for Canadian citizenship. All those hurdles most of you maybe never went through, but administrative or bureaucratic hurdles you have to come over. Then final step was a meeting with the judge. I was appointed judge, and it was a meeting in person, me and my wife. Then the girlfriend that I wanted to marry at the time, she made it on her own. 6 months later, she jumped Iron Curtain. She was 19, lots of courage. So 4 years later, we are facing a judge, many questions asked, but one was quite interesting. He asked, after all those years here, what is the most interesting thing that you kind of find in this society? We looked at each other with my wife and spontaneously, too much freedom. And that's probably the message I like to deliver, is that freedom is not for free, but don't take it for granted.
Ned, there are Red Wing jerseys in the audience. I see them.
I don't see any.
Red Wing jerseys, stand up, please. You were the first to leave, 1974. But help us. You grew up in what was then called Czechoslovakia. You became a very elite athlete as a young man. What was it like?
It is too difficult to say because it's been so far away from me right now. But I would go back to history a little bit. As you said, March 46. I was born before that time. But still, that time we didn't know what happened after the Second World War, how war is going to be decided on different parts. And as a child, I couldn't even understand or know which way I'm going to be, which part of the world I'm going to be. Liberalization of country by US Army was just very close, 50 miles from the Prague. But decision has been made that Russians are better winners, I think, and they decide already how it's going to be split that time, the world. Then as a young kid, poor family, nobody had nothing in that time. Then grew up, I just didn't have idea what politics means, and it developed through that years living there from gradually dislike Russia to hate Russia. Sorry, Dmitri.
He hates them too.
Then,
Now I do.
then as a young people, we did sports was free because you had to go to club, and I play all these sports. And start to hit you at the school, and all those people, they were involved in politics. They were possible party members. Then in school, they had picture of Russian president, and they were flag Czechoslovakia and Russia together. And all these signs, like with Russia forever, and all those signs, they were just really there to produce new generation to like Russia and like system which Czechoslovakia followed. Then as I'm getting older, start to play hockey, travel around the world, running to Canada, US, Russia. Then I saw different thing they was told it is. Then I just make my own mind and studied physical education, biology. Then my goal would be a teacher. But later on, when I get to trouble with government because of interest from US and Canada and other countries, I wouldn't be able to do that because I was followed by secret police, and I had bugged my apartment, cars, everything else. My mail wouldn't show up. And
Stop for a second. You were followed by the secret police.
yes,
What else did they do?
all what they do, you know. You don't know what they do. Like I said, they bugged my apartment, my car. I couldn't talk with my wife. We had to go outside somewhere. I knew people that travel with the team. They were secret police people. They check you. They're following every step and report it to proper people. They come back from the trips. Then this just produce that feeling that if you do for government what they asking you to do to represent proper way and be successful, that's fine. But once if you stick up your head and do something differently, they would cut your head off, which means they would just, like Anton said, they would put you in jail easily. That situation was World Championship Czechoslovakian team 47-49, and they tried to discuss to leave country, but somebody told them, was obviously again those people, and make up court decided like 14 years less to 2 years. They were in jail for a long time, and they were let go in 1960 by President's amnesty. Some of those people, I play with them too, like 2 years later, they would come and they would talk about it, but they were just, mostly of them is dead because of illnesses, mostly cancer. Then I didn't like to end up like that because it just projected that it may happen when I go further through my successful year, and I will end up, like last 3 years, I was constantly in contact with US and Canada and other countries. And I knew that there is no way out, and I applied different way, and I asked people from US and Canada to come to Prague and discuss that. But they just smile at me, and they just making me stupid. Then I just decided that there's no other way than make decision and decide my life to live way I like to live.
Dmitri, you actually grew up in the Soviet Union because Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union today. And if Comrade Putin has his way, it will be again. What was it like growing up in the Soviet Union?
Those guys gave stories, but for us living in Soviet Union, Czechoslovakia was also over the border, and somebody could get into in their country to visit them, to go to tourists or something like that. They would see also difference between living style in Czechoslovakia and living style in Soviet Union. That was, in our opinion, was a big difference too. So. Even worse was in Soviet Union, but like was mentioned before, sportsmen, they were, if they do the right things and do good sports stuff, you will be rewarded with some privileges, money, and some not a bad life compared to the rest of the people. And but yes, if you something like if you stuck your head up, and you can just not have it anymore. Examples could be like they said, could be put to jail. It could be taken away from sports. It could be thrown away from a school. It could be anything. It depends on what have you done wrong compared to what you should have done. Just to be the normal like everybody else. And when I was like 16 years old, it's already get a little bit warmer in Soviet Union. The Soviet Union was prepared themselves to split in the end of 80s, and officially was in 91. And that presidents of Soviet Union back then, they called not presidents but prime ministers, or I don't know, secretary of the Communist Party. They were like changing, and some would come up with, Gorbachev would come up with some easy way for the people. And it was like, in some opinion, that's what brought it to totally collapse of Soviet Union. But yeah, people had, we had more freedom, if you would call it, so we had more chances to go outside the country, see what's life look like outside the country in Europe, even the close in Europe, like Czechoslovakia, Poland, Romania. That's also was under the curtain, a big curtain, but it was also, inside that curtain, we had a curtain between us too. So we couldn't just travel to other countries. I don't know, how about you, from Czechoslovakia to Poland, was it easy, hard? Easy, but for us it wasn't. So, yeah, playing hockey and not, I also start to see how life looked like outside, and yeah, I didn't make my decision or desire to play somewhere else. Even though I was asked to play for Moscow team, I didn't like that idea, and maybe back even then I felt different between Ukrainian people and Russian people. And but all of those times from 46 or maybe even early age when Soviet Union was before the war, Russia was trying to put every other republics like to understand that Russia is a big brother or whatever they call it, and everybody has to know Russian language. And in my words, I remember my thoughts when I was a little kid. I said to myself, we're living in the capital of Ukraine. Why do we speak Russian language? It was like, but all the big cities in Ukraine was Russian language speaking. Step outside the city, like I went to to see my grandma. I was speaking Ukrainian, easy, quickly moving from one language to another, no problem. And so that's what Russia did. They tried to keep everybody in the Soviet Union under the big protection, what they called, but in reality it was the other way around. They wouldn't give us any freedom at all.
Well, kept them under control except for the several million Ukrainians that they slaughtered during the 1930s.
Yes, that was true.
Peter, it has been whispered to me that you didn't always keep your head down during those days. What was it like? Did you try to challenge authority? Did you try to push back as you became a star of their national team?
It's not my personality. I've done all my life thing my way. I'm probably the best described as a contrarian to just about everything. I go against the flow very often. And I knew that was one of the reasons why I left, because eventually there were clashes, but while I was, top-notch hockey player playing for a country, playing for Czechoslovakia and bringing results, serving as a propaganda tool for the regime, I could, because I got in trouble, but they would like to get rid of me, but the higher up, they said, no, I felt we had strength, we had power too, but I knew it was limited. It was limited, in the scope, like horizontally, vertically, because eventually you cross the line with the wrong person, and like Nedomanský mentioned, that is unbelievable what happened to they were world champion. It was the first time and second time, like world champion for Czechoslovakia in 1947-49. Yeah. Ever. These were like a dream team, like a Michael Jordan in Barcelona. Can you imagine they come home and 90% of the team they throw to the jail? That would be like it's impossible. Like you would think, and that was almost intentional. That's a message for a whole country, like Slovaks, Czechs, and across. You better behave. Don't stick your head out, because we'll take care of you. And you could disappear from one day to the other. And you end up in long-term prison term, or you end up in forced labor camp, usually working in uranium mines. And so I knew who we dealing with. I was smart enough, but eventually I just couldn't take it. And luckily, I was married by then. I realized you think you want to raise your family, but you don't want to raise the family in an environment where state will dictate the values, not you, not your parents, grandparents, or your tradition, your Slovak tradition. Like there is a Christianity over 1,200 years, but Russians, Soviets, they were atheist, and every religion was enemy to the regime.
Let me interrupt you right there. Were you free to practice your Catholic faith?
Yeah.
You could.
I was. I knew when I finished the hockey, I'll be, maybe blue collar, working somewhere or driver, because these people were enemies. I knew they knew about me, but I was arrogant enough. A lot of people, because of a career, they skipped. I never stopped going to the church, Sundays, holidays, and I was faithful. And maybe that's why I succeeded and eventually made the right decision in my life.
Anton?
Yeah, I'd like to add one anecdote about the freedom of confession I was called up for national team. I was a young guy, 18 years old. First time in Prague. We had the 2 games against Soviets. And after first game, going off the shower, and there is a guy in a nice gray suit, just like Mikuláš, and he looking at me, and I'm looking at him, and he looked at me, what's that? And I had a golden chain and cross. Next time, it's off. I look at him, straight in his eyes, I walk by. Next game in Bratislava, I had the same golden chain. I never put it down. Until NHL was the same golden chain. So that was freedom, and I think that was it, like Peter mentioned, it was just adding up. I think it was time for us to leave because it was slowly, I'm sure that guy didn't forget that golden chain and golden cross.
Was there any hint back then of independent newspapers or television stations or radio stations?
Just like in North Korea, yeah. None whatsoever. We were fed by, we were in Bratislava watching Austrian television, listening to the Austrian radio, but most of the country was tuning up to Voice of America, Radio Free Europe. We were getting, kind of information we needed about realities because there was a counterweight to propaganda. We were, exposed every day, 24 hours a day.
Well, just so that everybody understands, let me put the direct question to each of you. If you wanted to play professional hockey in North America, were you free to leave?
No, I was trying myself. Like I said, officially I asked for a visit, and it was not even talk about it. They told me if you live 300 kilometers west, you can go, but not now.
In my case, like I said, it was late 80s. So still Russian didn't want to give up the hockey players. They come up with the ideas. Any hockey player who would like to go and play outside the country, they have to be 20 years old or played 10 years in the league in Soviet Union. In my case, I just started to play, and I wasn't even, I was just the beginning of 20 years old, not even. But I believed in, I see what happened in Ukraine. Like I said, maybe we smelled that freedom better than Russian people did. And I believed that I will succeed in the right way, and that's what happened. The Washington Capitals, who drafted me, they came straight to the Kyiv sports ministry, and they talked straight and without having to say something to Moscow. They said Moscow didn't make any decisions to make. So we made a decision, didn't ask Moscow, and that's how that happened. And a couple of years later, after I came here, the Soviet Union collapsed, and that's kind of was before my time. So I was at my time at 1990. I was the youngest player ever left officially from Soviet Union.
May I add, officially. Because people from the NHL came with a lot of cash. Yeah. A lot of cash, because that regime was so corrupt. And I know how we got our third brother out, a lot of cash to the right people, and somehow they closed their eyes, and he managed to leave the country with whole family, but it was very difficult. But if I may add to those, like if I was free, yeah, and thanks to Nedomanský, because when they left, there was like a shrewd kind of a calculation. They promised us, then they decreased, but they said if you play for national team, you're 30 years old and you got certain amount of games, then you'll be allowed to go play out west, wherever, even North America. But nobody wants, elderly, like it's not geriatry. This is, and then later on when we left, they
30-year-olds are geriatric. We can all agree on that.
In hockey business, later on when we left, they decreased it to 28 years. So it really was supposed to keep us away to thinking that and hoping that when you play well, you stay in, and then you go and play out west. Then you can return. You can go freely, just like Dima was allowed to go legally. Otherwise, but it was, as I said, it was very, very calculative.
For the three of you who had to get out on your own, as opposed to Dmitri finally. Was there one event, one day, one fact where you said, okay, I need to go. I need to try to go? Is there one for
me,
you?
it was accumulation of those, let's say, last 3 years. I had so many problems with so many people, but until I was good and played well for national team and club, they didn't see it. But once they found out my thinking, they said, we don't like him. He cannot take care of our young people in school. And more, then let's get rid of him. Unwanted.
And this was during the same period where you were being spied on.
Yeah, that was the last 3 years of my staying there.
Did you have a passport?
Number of passports.
Did they ever seize your passports?
Yeah. We had passports that time for playing hockey, which was like a business passport and personal passport. And when I tried to get out, they somehow couldn't find it. Then I had to make arrangements and find a third passport, which allowed me to over weekend drive away from the country. Because that time you needed passport and permission from school and from street and from bank. And always they said, no, you cannot do that, because we don't have money, $100 per day or for trip. Then it was necessary to have passport and permissions. Then I did get passport, but didn't ask for permission.
Anton, was there a day, was there an event, was there a thing that happened where you said, and you almost told us earlier, yeah, it's time to try to get out?
Yeah, that was a moment when this nice gentleman from Communist Party said, if you don't obey, if you complain, you out. And that day I knew that we'll be gone.
Peter, were you there for the same speech?
We played together, we lived together, whatever, just we were brothers. We slept together. We were like 6 kids, so all the brothers were gone, but we were like 3 bedrooms, so we were 2 per bedroom. So and Anton was my roomie. So
I'm not going to press that too far.
I was there. Hey, brothers, don't mess with stars.
So, but I mean, was that basically what
I
drove you?
I had a little special, just very direct moment when I went after him. I said, Stanley, we're leaving. Because he was young, he was ready to leave anytime. Like he was like, I said, hey, there is a consequences. They're going to ruin your families. We had offer since Canada Cup '76. That means 4 or 5 seasons, almost 5 years, coming offers to leave and big money. I said, but I cannot sacrifice my brothers, my parents, because they're going to be very, very nasty, to them. And but when they start threatening me directly, I was at military service, and they call me up because of this affair in our club, and they start threatening my career in national team. They're taking away everything from me. You reach after my hockey. That was more important than anything at the time. I was that stupid and that in love with hockey. That was anyway. And then once they threatened me directly, I walk off directly to my younger brother, we're leaving. And we started working on it, and we didn't have much time. There was like days or weeks, whatever, to prepare, but we were still not sure if it works out. So we had like a plan, it was like maybe 50-50. Something doesn't work out, and we were ready to come home. But thank God it worked out.
I'll ask you about that in a minute. Ned, you are writing a book about some of your experiences, including your exit from Czechoslovakia. Tell us what you can about how you actually got out.
Better if you buy it and read it. Then
Well, that's why I just told them that there's going to be a book, but you could at least tease them.
Yeah, it is just done. Just about 10 days ago, it was published in Prague. And then I was actually attempting to do that before, but it was not the right time. I couldn't tell myself, let's go and say it the way it was before. Then I decided to do it. First of all, it is out of my head because always it is in my body and my dreams and all this stuff. Then it was difficult. Sometimes if you go to painful times, it was difficult to produce a way that people would understand. Then, but fortunately it is done, and I did a special for younger generation that they know that the big dreams are good. They go after them, and that's the main reason.
When you left not from Czechoslovakia, but from Austria?
We left from Czechoslovakia to Austria, and we just didn't return from Austria to Czechoslovakia. We just continue one-way ticket to North America. Yeah.
So how did it come about? The spy novel part of it, you don't have to disclose.
Yeah, that's a story for a book, or at least a long chapter. And it was amazing because, as I said, luckily everything kind of, all the stars were in right constellation, and everything kind of worked out. They were so interested, like they were in a matter of hours. They hired private plane and big plane, whatever. They were in few hours. They were sitting in front of our hotel in Innsbruck.
Almost everything. I got lost. Believe that?
Yeah, that's a part of it.
It was really, everything was so tense. So we had sort of a meeting at 11 o'clock at night, and the driver, was supposed to wait there and there. And there were 2 exits from hotel, and I kind of mixed up. And he was sitting in a car, driving in Innsbruck at night, looking for me. I was walking and looking for his car. I was for about 2 hours. And he said, last round, if you don't find him, we are gone. Last round, and...
It wasn't last round. We were leaving.
Oh,
and then it was like from midnight to about 1:30, and I was worried. I said, I'll be more useful being in Vienna, alert the authorities, just in case, because, as I said, Austria was just, there was a spy center, spy capital, and people, they were like a Soviet athlete in Munich. They tried to emigrate. Oh, somebody knocked them down, put them asleep, put them in the car trunk, and they woke up in Soviet Union, because like a baggage or car with the diplomatic signs, they were not allowed to open up and look at them. So the same thing could happen to Anton. I lost him, and we tried to look at the bus. Did they get him? Didn't they get him? Is he alive? Is he okay? Who got him? Just what happened to him? There was a million questions per second. It was the hardest thing ever happened to me, and best relief. I got 2. But one was when I said, we need to go to Vienna. I was sitting with my wife and driver into Vienna. We tried to alert authority and do whatever need to save him and find him. Before they get him, he wakes up in Slovakia or in Bratislava. And luckily, as we were leaving, I thought that was a mirage. I see you're a hockey player, and brothers, we know each other like body language. Where you walk, you just know who it is. And I see, man, I couldn't believe what I see. Is it him? Because I saw the body language, I saw Anton, but is it in my dream or is it real? It was like, as I say, 1:30 after midnight. It was him. So, man, what a feeling when he got him in the car and we just, flying to Vienna.
I want to ask about some of the consequences of your leaving. The consequences. Ned, after you left, was your family punished?
No, my parents, they were working people. My father, he lost his job, and my mother, she worked out of the house. Then they didn't feel much, except they had to go to police all the time, and they check all his friends, and they collected information where I am, what I'm doing, all this stuff, sending somebody to Canada for me to try to get me back from government. And besides that, the material things which obviously didn't mean anything for me. I bought an apartment, a renovated apartment. I had a car, I had the money. all this was confiscated at last. My parents later on, they bought some chair or some sofa just to memorize my staying there. And in my personally, I wasn't obviously liked very much in Czechoslovakia. I was thrown out of all records book. My name wouldn't be anywhere.
You and I are even.
Yeah. How about those 1,000 points? I have almost 1,000. And when I, for example, when I played with Detroit and we play Russian team and they making television transmission and they say that I got killed in a car accident and my other brothers, they were there, the Russian players. And a few years actually between transferring from Canada to US, those years I was also interviewed with all this state police and I had to show them all and tell them how we live, and they checked with me a few things, but I was trying to be decent, and I would only tell what I didn't know.
Did they try to penalize your teammates on the national team?
I think some after that, like Peter said, Bratislava travel to Germany, and a couple of players, they just sent them home. They wouldn't let them go over because they thought that they may stay there too. But as far as I was more or less hurt because of time spent there in Bratislava between 18 to 30. I did all my best. I represented city and time and country very well. And all of a sudden, nobody knew me, nobody liked to talk to me. Those articles were nasty, like I left for money, all this Canadian dollars, all this stuff. And especially these Communist Party papers, they just, it was all articles which just very nasty, untruthful. I complained, but they said we cannot do anything about that, it's done. Then that part was the worst, that actually I didn't go back maybe 20 years.
Well, I guess that's my next question.
Yeah.
You weren't free to go back.
No, I wasn't. I was actually getting jail 4 years if I would come back.
4 years.
Yeah. Everyone else had 18 months, so I don't know why me 4 years.
Because you scored 1,000 points. What about the two of you? Consequences?
I was better than Nedomanský. I got 24 months. I was a ringleader. My wife got 18 or 12. And you got
I got only 18. I was
18.
so
I was a ringleader.
I behaved.
So I got 24 months. If I would return, they would throw us straight to the jail.
So how did you know that? I mean, who told you, oh, by the way, you come back, you're going to be in jail for 4 years, 24 months?
You know what?
Family get the information.
Oh, they told the
Actually,
family.
parents, my
Parents,
address, they
yeah.
sent to address, it was the parents, and we knew there was official decision of the court in Bratislava, and they were actually...
So you were convicted?
They were actually
Convicted, yeah.
convicted, yeah, that's what I'm telling you. It wasn't like you can appeal or something. No, you can, when you come, straight to the...
Anything happened to your family? They try to penalize your parents?
Like Nedomanský said, they were nasty. Like, you disappear immediately if they write, and they write from time to time, a few times a year, but only lies and only negative things. You know, like how sorry they should be that they made a decision. They tried to brainwash like the whole population because they knew like he was so well known. I'm telling you, he was Wayne Gretzky of his era, and he was idol for everybody, and including me. And later we became almost same status because we reached, if you got few world champions, and that was very, very rare. So you become one of the biggest stars. And when we left, they went after parents. They were after my brothers. And parents were constantly interrogated. They confiscated his apartment. He was supposed to get a new apartment. As I said, maybe worth these days €500,000. And he couldn't complain. Maybe he could, but what about it?
So help with that, because the audience may or may not know. So you had a brother, Marion. And
5 brothers.
I know, but the one played on the national team with you. So what happened to him after you left?
Oh, he was immediately suspended and kicked off from the team. He was not allowed to even come there, and he was, interrogated, and everybody who met him was interrogated. So in few days, he lost all the friends. Nobody wanted to talk to him. They saw him, they ran on the other side of the street. Because you meet him, you stop, you exchange few words, and you get invitation to the, secret police, and they want to know everything. Why? What do you do? Why do you talk to him? And they were spreading the fear. It was horrible. I felt so bad.
And he had the company 24/24, 7 days, and every bloody day, day and night, somebody was under his apartment and watching him every move. After about a month or two, he even wrote a letter to president of the country, Czechoslovakia. Week after, he was called up to police, and the captain there, he showed the letter. Ah, you thought it would go to president? No. So he couldn't.
But that's why, Tom, that was the second biggest relief. 10 months later, I was in Las Vegas at the end of the season. I got a phone call that Marian and the whole family is in Vienna, which means he was safe. Man, I mean, I got still shivering kind of feelings just thinking of it, and I still recall vividly.
There came a time, there came a day when all three of you were standing on the blue line in Quebec.
Yeah. We were reunited. We played together for Slovan Bratislava, got first ever championship for a Slovak team, playing three of us together in the same line, playing for World Championship in Moscow and at the Olympics at the Lake Placid, all three of us together. And then we were separated for a year, and then we were reunited and continued enjoying
Couple of specific questions for any one of the three of you. What do you remember about the tanks, the Soviet tanks rolling into Bratislava and Prague in 1968?
Yeah, I was there. We had training camp. It was August. And when we heard about that, actually night before we play game, and next morning tanks are coming through city. Then I went with my coach, Jan Starší. We went downtown and looked at that situation there where people were injured, bleeding, dead. People from tanks, they shooting because they didn't know where they are actually, I think. And they just confused, and then it was the first time and last time I went there. Then after that, we just continued with practicing and playing games, and it was just terrible to see that.
Peter or Anton, in 1988, there were a series of events in Bratislava called the Candles Demonstration. What do you remember about that?
Oh, very much, a lot, and very little, because it was organized by my older brother. He was running the roof organization, Slovak World Congress. People from, as I said, from New Zealand, Australia, South America, North America, Western Europe, getting together once every 3 years and working how to help Slovakia as a country and its citizens to enjoy the same freedom, same rights, same prosperity like we did. So, and Marian actually became, at the time he was vice chairman of the organization, but he was tasked to get this, and he was very secretive. He wouldn't tell us. But they knew that, and that was so beautiful. They knew that because they pick up, they were good. Their Secret Service and the KGB, they find out everything. They got people, North America, Canada, US, everywhere. So they found out. They tried to stop it. They couldn't. It was maybe the time, and it was blessed, and people came massively. At a certain time, they came to the biggest square, one of the most famous in the old town, biggest in the old town, and start gathering. They locked up few leaders, and people still kept coming. They didn't allow people to come, but some people hide, or somehow they managed to get there. At 7 o'clock, they pull out the candles, light them, and then they start, pushing them and spraying them and beating them with the batons. And I was so proud for my brother. And this was the biggest revolt ever, since communists took over in 1948. So, and we still have a communist running all these institutions, including the academy, because I was in task as the head of Slovak delegation in the European Parliament. We were writing the book like Communism or Period of the Communism in our countries. And it was like 10 new countries which were all under Soviet influence. There was like, three Baltic countries, Czech, Slovak. There were like 10 chapters in that book and about the history. So I consulted and tasked the head of the department of the Slovak Academy, the writers. He wrote everything. I said, where is scandal? Not even mentioned there. Can you believe this? Like for these people, there were 20 like congresses of the Communist Party, and their outcomes and results. Everything was there, but not even. I had to put a paragraph there, so at least it's there, so people know. But that was the biggest thing, and I'm very, very proud of people in Slovakia right now. They try to right now. There is an attempt to make that day National Day of holiday, kind of a national day, and make it in work-free and national holiday, just to celebrate the courage, because people were beaten badly. It was cold. They were sprayed. They're completely wet, and then they got the consequences later on too, on top of it.
Dmitri, I'm going to change topics and make it even more sober. You were in Ukraine in February of 2022. What was it like?
Obviously, in the morning we got all the news. Everybody was in shock, and nobody knows what to do and how to deal with it. And first couple of days, I guess the Russians soldiers were moving really fast. Every city got not just army, but volunteers gathering together, getting automatic weapons, building some barricades, just in case, even though it was like a couple 100 kilometers from us where I lived. At that time, I lived in the city Kremenchuk. It's in the middle of the country. But we did have all the block posts, all the barricades. I've seen it. Suddenly, sky become silent. Only if you heard something, that means it's not good. Luckily for me, for a month and a half, I've been in the territory of Ukraine before I escaped with the national team to prepare for World Championship. I didn't see much of the damage what the Russian did with my own eyes, but I've seen all the documentarily what I could get from the internet, from the TV. It was terrible, and especially I'm from Kyiv, but I wasn't in Kyiv since war started, so I only got there just a month ago. So that was missing for a year and a half.
Dmitri, do you have your iPhone with you?
Now, yes. Yeah.
Just pull it out for a second, would you?
Yeah, it's...
Last night, I happened to see the face of Dmitri's iPhone, and there were a series of red circles or dots, and under that, a series of yellow circles, and under that, a series of red circles or dots. And I asked him what that is. And he said, that is the electronic notice that I get all day, every day, of when the air raid sirens are coming on at home. So as we sit here and talk about that, the red dots and the yellow dots come on in Ukraine, and they come on right here on this podium.
Yeah, that last one was today at 8 o'clock in the morning. Was red dots, and 8:27 is green. The siren is off. So 8 o'clock in the morning, that would be 7 hours in front of us. So, but sometimes during the night, it's not happening. So it's just if you then it goes news. So this is only for Kremenchuk, which is the Poltava region. So each city, big city or regions, they have their own decision to make where the drones are going or where the weapons are flying to. And it's sometimes I've seen it when it's whole Ukraine was red. And sometimes the regions, they're making decisions. So for the people to go, and yeah, also there's a hockey still going on, and sometimes the hockey game is on, and you hear the sign, the game is stopped, everybody goes to shelter, and it could be half an hour at least, at most could be a couple hours, and then decision gonna make either they're gonna finish the game or postpone the game or do something else, but interruption is there.
I want to leave some time for some questions from the audience, but I'd like to put one more question to each of you. Putting together your experiences that you've told us about from 1968 or from 1988 or from 2002 or from 1974, whenever it was, whether you think the situations today are parallel, similar, different from back then. What message do you have that you would like to leave with us?
As I mentioned, freedom is not for free. We better pay a price, and we better pay attention before something bad happens.
Dmitri?
I would totally agree with that, and living under the boot, you said, of Russia, and feeling it's not right and trying to get away from it, and then fighting for the freedom. That's what Ukrainians, they do right now, and this is the most important thing. They do not want to give up. They know exactly what they want to do, and this is we're gonna all of us in Ukraine and the rest of the world will get to the point where we're gonna win.
Ned?
I'd just like to have a personal note. After I thought I maybe finish with my life and sports and life in general, I would thank you, United States and Canada, for giving me another chance and let me live and my family new life.
Peter?
My message is that the world, at least the democratic and free world, should get together and do whatever it takes to stop Putin, because we need to learn from the history. History is one of the best teachers besides children. They're honest, and history should teach us something. And you gave in to the Adolf Hitler in 38, 39. Look what happened. The consequences this time could be a lot worse. So whatever is the cost, it's going to be cheap compared to when we do nothing, or when we let the Ukraine struggle, or let the Putin steamroll through the Ukraine, because there would be consequences, there would be next chapters, and that would be very, very, very expensive.
If your country did not have the protection of the European Union on the economic side and NATO and Article 5 on the defense side, do you think you'd likely be in the same boat as Ukraine?
We almost ended up. That was my message during the noon, that just being the Mikuláš Dzurinda led Slovakia, and it was by the hair. We got lucky, because if he would have won, you know what happens when you get complete control of the media, or you got all the money, corrupt oligarch working for you, you're going to brainwash population. It would be possible that Ukraine wouldn't be attacked from north, from Belarus, and east from Russia, but even from the west, from Slovakia. That would be possible. And that's why my greatest appreciation and gratitude to Prime Minister, that he managed to get us to NATO, and therefore he cemented for Slovakia for generation and hopefully for centuries peace and security, and getting us into EU. He guaranteed and cemented like freedom, and prosperity, and a lot of options for people, and you know, for generation, hopefully for centuries, because so far NATO is strong, but they need to show they're strong, and help where help is needed.
Audience participation. No questions to me, but questions to the athletes. Sir.
Getting back to hockey.
Look at the mic, that you don't have to scream.
When you were on either the national team playing Czechoslovakia against Russia, was it friendly? Was it competitive, or was there something more going on? I even heard that the Czechoslovakians back in the early 70s were very discouraged to even cheer for Czechoslovakia when you were playing Russia.
I remember that time, but you know, we were from the start in the 70s. Russian, they had a very good team. They trained properly, they were very strong. But if they were winning, they were okay. But if they were losing, they were terrible losers. Then once we start to beat them after 68 Olympic Games, then we beat them almost constantly on World Championship. The games, they were not really friendly. They were really on the edge. And playing that 68, 69 in Stockholm, audience plus referees, I felt they were on our side. We could do more than normally we would do. Then it was a matter of finally show that we are good or are better players, and finally some obviously show that political undertone, because it gave us another power to play our best.
Yeah, hello. Three short questions. Do you think the US and Europe, especially Germany, is currently doing enough to help Ukraine? Second, how worried are you about the recent election outcomes in Slovakia and the solidarity with Ukraine? And third, how worried are you about the 2024 United States election outcomes?
Well, let's do them one at a time. What's the first question?
Is the US and Germany Europe doing enough?
It's a question for a politician.
I appreciate what they're doing, but it's not enough. You know, like Ukraine needs more help, and as I said, it's cheap. Right now, it's cheap, because if you don't do enough, it's going to be way, way more expensive. And it's not the US and Germany. It should be all the developed democratic world, and backed up or up front with NATO.
And let me try the second question then. Are you concerned about the outcome of your most recent parliamentary elections?
I am very concerned, because these people are known people. They appointed the corrupted people. They were part of a mafia, corrupted the state. Everything was shown, everything was evidenced, and people voted them back to the power. Instead of sitting in a jail, now they're sitting in the parliament, in parliament and the government. So, and I'm worried because they openly declared they're not going to help Ukraine. And they better change their mind, because they would have to deal with people. Because I really love how Poles, like Slovaks, or everybody bordering Ukraine came and welcomed them with open arms. You know, it was very, very unifying and a very strong message, and hopefully that will continue.
Sorry, the third question about the US election. I'm helping Rudy.
Are you concerned about the 2024 US elections?
When I enter politics in European Parliament, in the European Union, I gave up my U.S. citizenship. So
that was the best answer so far. Yes.
Thank you for sharing your very engaging personal stories. I have a question to any one of you. Actually, we know that those times were times of fighting and competition of two big systems, liberal democracy and socialism or communism. And we know that there were very strong propaganda and brainwashing, you know, as currently in Russia. And my question is, did you personally, as young people, believe in that socialistic ideas about social equality, social justice, and whether there were something good things that you are missing now, like reminding that it was good at that time?
I can start. Personally, I didn't believe in anything, and there was always like double standards. What we heard from our parents at home and whatever we were taught in the school. You can guess what was the priority. What the parents told us, for me, was sacred. So whatever was written or taught in the school was just coming one ear and the other one out.
And we are also common sense people, so it wasn't that difficult to figure out where is the truth. And
advantages, there are no advantages. If you don't live in the freedom, what's the point? I don't see it. That was an advantage, maybe better society for lazy people. Not the somebody that wanted to do something and have an honorable life.
I just feel sorry, and I'm not very happy what happened, you know, those days, 1945, because I know the General Patton, he wanted to continue. That was an evil regime. That's what happened. We were building, and I'm still wondering when we're going to get rid of it. We're building the monuments. Monuments for what? One occupying army was pushed by other occupying army and taking even more freedom. This is unbelievable. People still afraid to talk, and it's kind of a taboo or politically inconvenient. And there should be some serious decision made and identify what's right, what's wrong, what's true, and what's a lie.
Growing up there and hearing everything, propaganda from Soviet Union, obviously it's there, but nobody believed. That's my opinion. We just we're afraid to talk about that openly to the public. We can talk about that. We could have talked about it like secretly in between each other, maybe at the kitchen if there is no bugs in there. But otherwise, it wasn't. You cannot bring that up in newspaper or to the TV. There is no way you could have bring it up. That's kind of information.
So with the current political polarization of our world as a whole, and the amount of information we can get that is unchecked all across with having the internet now, do you guys see any parallels on how, when you were growing up, some of the propaganda or the information that is out there and pitting different people and organizations against each other, and then how can we as people of the country and the world communicate with each other more effectively to avoid getting to a point where another Iron Curtain or another wall gets put up between the world?
Me again? Okay.
Yeah. No, I just felt that feeling sorry for our parents, because that time they lived through a hard time, and under a regime that time was information one way only from one television, one party. Then that process stopped developing their kids and their families and forward to develop democracy and normal thinking life people. It is a social problem for me. If you compare that with other countries, not talking about the US and Canada, for example, that time Sweden or Germany or more intellectual-oriented country, and even Germans, they lost the war, obviously. But that, I just see that even now, if I go or reading paper and listen, that information we have right now, you can make up your own decision and your idea how you like to run this world if you can, not us, but generally.
And also, may I add, you said, what can we do with, before the wall was built up? We're not building the wall. This society is not building the wall. They, on Russian territory, they trying to separate themselves from the normal life living, like North Korea did. And what we can do, stay united, stay together, and not let those diseases spread.
Thank you, gentlemen, for being here this evening. My question is, will there be any negative repercussions for what you've shared this evening?
Not whatsoever. We are European Union. I don't know about, and I'm sure same thing applies to Ukraine because it's right now a free country. They already applied and they're on their way to be in European Union. So, they don't have a KGB from Moscow there. Actually, they hate them with a passion, just like we did in '68. And no, especially, I'm the retiree, so what repercussion from where?
I can add up, I'm living in Switzerland, and I just mentioned today that once a year there is always somebody comes and writes an article or an interview. I was even asked to go for this what was it, the 17th November, 20th anniversary, a few years back. I couldn't go because I had a business to run, so I had to go to Slovakia. But every time lately they come to me, they ask me about being more vocal about freedom, and they ask me to, how was it? And something like we are doing here. So I think that the society and Switzerland in general, they would love to hear that what we were talking about here.
Yeah, it is really important. It was mentioned even my prime minister that society needs to be heard more vocal, because these days the communication is incredible. In split of seconds, everything goes. But these enemies of democracy, enemies of truth, they employ army of trolls, and they so you need to also go and always be skeptical what you read, and always verify, check, get more sources, and use your common sense. People used to call it like our grandparents or farmers. That's a common sense, like a normal hard-working person. And you very quickly come to the right conclusion. But unfortunately, young people, that's why I said history. You gotta respect history, learn from history, read, and it's going to be very easy to translate and to identify, where is the truth, where is the lie, what's half-truth, and the proper decision would be taken by our leaders.
Okay, sorry. This has been wonderful. I certainly want to get your perspective on something that's also at the intersection of what's been going on, especially since February of 2022, but also intersects with the world of hockey and especially for young athletes. Obviously, since the outbreak of the Ukraine war, the IIHF as well as other international sporting bodies have banned Russia from participating in certain international competition, including in hockey. I just wanted to get all your perspectives on the approaches related to that, and whether or not you feel that's sort of the appropriate way of sort of treating the situation facing, of course, the athletes that are involved, the national sporting bodies, and also get your perspective on whether the approaches are sort of, in your view, the appropriate way, and if not, if there are any other potential approaches that you might even suggest or even talk about that hasn't been suggested.
I voiced already before, my problem is now with National Hockey League about Russian players. Because of situation which is right now, there is so many very good or excellent players in league, but still, it is not, in my eyes, it is not correct. U.S. government, in my opinion, they should stop temporarily visum to those players and would wait what happened, because that's all together. But problem is that owners of the teams, they making money out of those good teams, and people that are coming to see them, then that's a conflict between league, player association, and owners.
In my opinion, it's not, there's no ruling about it, but what I feel is it's come down to the person itself. And if in the situation, what we just talked about, that when these gentlemen escaped the system to play somewhere, right now they don't hold on to Russians, but the system where they're playing it, they wouldn't want to use the guys who support the Russian government. And that's my opinion. If this kind of athlete would come up and say, I don't want to support my government, or not my government, the government where I used to live, and I would like to be in this society, why wouldn't he want? He would probably be free to play anywhere. But yes, the government and the country and the people are responsible for the government and the country too.
I really believe that more can be done and more should be done, especially when it's clear, it's a black and white. There is nothing in between. And that's why I was talking about this decision-making of our leaders and unifying where there is absolutely common sense. Just like a world stood up against apartheid, this is a lot worse than apartheid. And we cannot even unite how to kind of let the world know this is unacceptable, because then the Russian people would decide. But but as I said, these trolls, they do their job and somehow split the societies and kind of infect some people's decision-making, and it shouldn't be, because especially in these cases, it's white and red, white and black. This is clearly injustice. This is clearly wrong. This is clearly evil, and that calls for unification and unify, and whatever it takes. If it's a banning, I'm sorry. I'm really a believer in the human rights and personal decision. I'm not for collective punishment, but something needs to be done in extreme cases, and it wouldn't hurt to be united in our approach and do whatever it takes to let Russian people know that whatever is their government doing is not acceptable for the rest of the world.
Dmitri, you told us about how Ukrainians were forced to use Russian as their primary language, as another facet of their control over your society. I'm just wondering if you all were permitted or taught English in your countries, or was that another way that they tried to separate the world? And if so, how was learning that language as you came to North America for each of you?
In school, yes, there was English language classes, and in most of the school used to be Russian and Ukrainian classes. What was the difference? When it could be Russian school or Ukrainian school. It depends what language is using most for the other subjects like math and something like that. But yes, English was also some English, some French or German were available back in Soviet Union when I was growing up. But a lot of schools were Russian-oriented. And about me learning English, that was after I came here, living in society, finding American wife, first wife.
That's the best way.
Yeah, and this is through the communication. So my oldest son, 25 years old, he doesn't speak any Russian or Ukrainian language because his mom is American. He was born in America, and he lives in America. Thank you.
Who has the microphone?
So I just wanted to ask if any of you guys have any advice for current young athletes today, both in navigating athletics and just kind of the political world as a whole.
Anton, do you have any advice about navigating athletics today?
No.
Because
Sometimes
it's chaotic.
No, yeah. Sometimes no advice, it's the best way, best outcome.
No, stay within moral boundaries and do your best and look for a best way to improve. Get to know yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses. And we had yesterday a wonderful meeting, and they were very, very attentive. Hockey team, all of them, asking proper questions, listening, and you could see they were enjoying it just like you, really attentive. So we gave them some advice too, and best advice is go and believe in yourself, try to reach for your dreams. And I just loved it yesterday. I love it today because you have to like ice hockey, because the main team here is hockey. So and so many people showed up. It warmed my heart.
Yes.
Hi, thanks. I've kind of a similar question. I'm wondering, to what extent do you think your identity as athletes and your success specifically as hockey players shaped your experience, your political experience, and your ability to have a political voice?
I like to say, and it's true, the hockey gave me basically everything, including my wife, my children, everything. Just, as I said, there was a time I was so passionate. One of my colleagues, he was a Catholic priest. He was inducted in Hockey Hall of Fame with my year, my class, 1998. And his pupils, his students, and he was big in hockey. He founded the best hockey program ever, called also Notre Dame in Alberta. Manitoba, Alberta. Is it in North Canada? Saskatchewan. Unbelievable program. And Pater Bauer from there too. He was also coaching national hockey team of Canada. And he was his pupil, that guy, that priest who was inducted. And his students, they were talking, his motto was God, country, and hockey, but not necessarily in the same order. And I just love that. So, I'm very, very passionate. And when I was in Parliament, a lot of people were asking me, even when I was a candidate, like, are there any parallel, any comparisons? Almost no differences, because I don't know any more ambitious people than politicians. And hockey players are very ambitious too, so, and any professional athlete. So, then it's a matter of a conflict or competition there, how you translate it and what you do. But I really felt moral obligation, because I was explaining this morning what was happening in Slovakia in the 90s, when we had the guy like Lukashenko almost took over the country forever. And we just barely escaped and managed to get our country to EU and NATO. Therefore, as I said, cementing a wonderful future for generations and generations.
Yes, sir. Any other questions? I think we are over the allotted time. Ned, thank you. Dmitri, thank you. Peter, thank you. Anton, thank you for traveling thousands of miles so that you could hear from these brave and determined men. And Dmitri, our prayers are with you as you go back into a war zone. And thank all of you for coming.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Tom, for wonderful moderation and a wonderful panel. We have many more questions in our hearts, and the moment we leave the room, they will come to our brains, but then it's too late, just that you know. So I just want to thank everybody here for coming. You have no reason to regret that you were here, so thank you so much nonetheless. Thank you to our VIP guests and our VIP moderator, to the Prime Minister of Slovakia for having, graced us with your presence this morning and now as well. To Jane Heiden, the wonderful chair of our wonderful advisory board. And I just have 2 announcements and 1 additional word of gratitude. The announcement is that the Notre Dame students who are here are most warmly invited to a dinner in 1050 Nanovic halls. So this is the Elizabeth Nanovic seminar room. You're most cordially invited to go over for dinner. And Pedro, is Pedro somewhere, would be the chaperone of the students in case you get lost between here and Jenkins Nanovic halls, which is unlikely. And I also am asked to announce that the Heiden dinner guests, this is the crème de la crème, are welcome to walk over to Corbett Hall to enjoy a drink before dinner. And lastly, I would like to express my deep gratitude to the Nanovic Institute team. There is a lot of work that has to happen behind the scene to make something like this happen. I also want to thank Kurt Bjork, our wonderful colleague in development, who has also pulled his weight, and he's a slim man, but he has pulled his weight to make this happen. And so thank you, all my friends at the Nanovic Institute. God bless you all. God bless Ukraine. You are in our prayers every day. We pray for peace in Ukraine. And enjoy the rest of the evening and the rest of your lives. Thank you.